on Natural State Sports, your top source for the biggest news in high school sports across Arkansas.
Here we go!
What is up, everybody? Welcome into Arkansas Prep's weekly episode 11 on Natural State Sports. My name is Kyle Sutherland, alongside baseball guru, wrong episode, softball guru, Mr. Jared Hawthorn, and it is officially state finals week. I think last week I said it wrong and mentioned that it was the last week of the season. Now we're in the last week of the season officially. So now that the state finals are set, we will wrap up the 2024 softball season at the University of Central Arkansas at Ferris Field. Thursday through Saturday, we will have those matchups. And, of course, we are going to get into those. I want to remind you first, if you are watching on YouTube, to make sure hit that subscribe button if you have not already. And then also you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any audio podcast that you listen to on those forums. We are there. And also, before we get started, want to tell you about our friends at Athletic Field Service of Arkansas. A properly graded infield is not only important for player safety, but also the field's health. No company in the state can match the exceptional service and dedication like our friends at Athletic Field Service of Arkansas in Sherwood. From infield renovation, lip removal and edging, mound rehab, laser leveling, and much more, Jeremy Rice and his crew have you covered. Call Jeremy at 501-416-1218. That's 501-416-1218 for your free evaluation and consultation. And you can check them out on Facebook or see what they have to offer online by searching Athletic Field Service of Arkansas. Athletic Field Service of Arkansas, we got the dirt on your infield. Well, Jared, starting in 6A, it's not quite what we expected, at least what we had talked about most of the year. From February, when we did January, whenever that was, when we did the preview pod, of course, at the very top of the list, as it always starts in 6A, we talked about Bentonville. We talked about defending champion for now, Bryant. And then, of course, Rogers, who had made those state title, or I guess the state semifinal runs over the past couple of years, and then made another run to the semifinals this year. But Bentonville, they really began to heat up once they got back from Louisiana. They always make that Louisiana trip around spring break time, but they make it back to the state finals. That's the 10th time since 2010 the Lady Tigers have been here. But then on the other side, it's an all-West finals for the first time since 2018 in the state's largest classification, as Springdale Harbor makes their way in. And first-year head coach Randy Ostis, can't say enough about what he and his staff have done. This has been a really good team all year, pretty much been anywhere from that 3 to 5 range in our Super 7. But they hit a little bit of a slump there in mid to late April and got on a run here, come in, and they beat Rogers in. They actually make a comeback. They were down 4-1 on Rogers in the semifinal game. So not particularly unbelievably surprising, I guess. Maybe many didn't expect Harbor to be here, but you always expect Bentonville. You're never really shocked, no matter how well they start or how well they don't. But we do have an all-West finals for the first time since 2018.
Well, looking at the Final Four, I had 3 out of the 4 to start the year. Harbor was the one that got me. I was expecting Cabot to be in that spot and the other 3 to be there. So Harbor snuck up in there and, ended up changing up what I had originally for my Final Four. But I had Rogers, I had Bryant, I had Bentonville, but I had Cabot. So I was close.
And it's reasonable. Cabot had been to the past 2 state finals.
I'm going to be honest, and I gotta eat my words. I said it was going to be a Bryant Rogers final. I was wrong. So hats off to Bentonville. They played really good ball. They've really turned it on late in the season here. And Harbor for sure. I expected them to be good. I was thinking they'd be 5-6 range. Well, they've made it all the way to the top 2. So congratulations to both those teams getting to the state championship.
Both really young teams. Harbor, I think they got pretty much all their starters coming back next year. Now, Bentonville's going to bring back a lot because they started 7 sophomores and freshmen. They are going to lose Ryan Sanders and Amber Turner, who had about as well of a senior moment as you could think of in the semifinal or the quarterfinal win over Conway. So, Jared, it's a 0-0 game, and you may know this. Our audience might not, so I'll just go ahead and recap it. But 0-0, bottom of the seventh inning. Now, Ryan has a perfect game going, and then Amber Turner hits a 3-run shot to win the game. And I overheard on the video Coach Early say, of course, he was coaching third, so he was right there by the camera. And I heard him say, what a senior moment. And a couple of things after that, I can't remember exactly what it was, but that's the gist of it. And couldn't really word it better. These are two that have just contributed so much to this program. Think about Ryan Sanders in the finals a couple of years ago as a sophomore, as a sophomore, MVP performance, struck out, I believe it was 13, 14 batters. She's going to the University of Louisville. Then Amber Turner, the other returning starter for this year, naturally a catcher, but really has played a lot of outfield and thrived at it. She was the starting right fielder the past 2 seasons. Then Sarah Watson graduates, goes on to Omaha, and she gets put behind the dish. First couple of games of the season, Coach Early figures that it needs to make some adjustments, not anything she did, but just some things that they needed to adjust in the field. And really ever since then, it has just taken off for Bentonville. And kind of a similar thing with Harbor. Harbor, I think you would probably say at the beginning was maybe a little bit more consistent. I think they actually got that win over Rogers early on, if I'm not mistaken. But they've got a battery right now that is going to be as good as any in the state in the next couple of years. Now, Sanchez, the freshman catcher, I'm not going to try to pronounce her first name, starts with an X. You know how I get with those things. And then the pitcher, Sierra Dots, that I've talked about a few different times this year. Coach Osnes really likes her, and I understand why. She's really good. But as I say all that to say that these two teams got here maybe a little bit quicker than we would have expected. Bentonville, you might have expected more just because, again, you brought Sanders back, and it's so crucial to have a pitcher of her caliber, and not to take anything away from Harbor. You've got Aniston Wright there as well, along with Sierra Dots. But I think that both of these two teams are a little bit, maybe a year ahead of schedule from when we thought they might be in the finals. So this could be the first of what could be a series of state finals between the two.
I would say that's a strong possibility. Definitely a lot of youth on both of them, and just looking at them, I was agree with you on that they were probably not looking like they would be there in the state championship until next year. The year after looked really strong too. They got there a year early, so hats off to them. I mean, they just worked hard and found the adjustments, and that's great coaches do that. They make those in-season adjustments, and they're able to find the little things to change and to tweak, and that's what they've done, and got themselves into the state championship, and one of them's going to walk away with a ring.
Then down in Class 5A, Sheridan, they were the dynasty before Benton. Post or pre-COVID, they won those state championships. What was it, 2016 to 19? Those 4 in a row, and have had a couple of good teams in the past couple of years. Came up and short in the semifinals in 2022. Made it to the quarterfinals last year. Jared, Sheridan has been the best team in Class 5A. They've shown it all season from beginning to end. But what do they always say? To win championships, you got to obviously have a lot of talent, but you got to have a little bit of luck. And they had some luck on their side in the finals. You think about they got past Van Buren, not easily, but the score was definitely a little bit lopsided in the first round. Then they go and play, was that Maumelle in the quarterfinals, walk off that one 3-2. Then they walk off Valley View 3-2. I think Coach Hoffman, I was joking with him about this, he'll probably be seeing his doctor on Monday morning for blood pressure pills after what he endured on that. But definitely credit to him. Scott, good friend of the show's. I know he's been very helpful with our coverage of the Lady Yellow Jackets, but also on the other side, BB. Quietly since March 28, they have won 20 of their past 21 games. They beat Valley View. What was that, like a 1-0 game on April 4th? And a few days later, they beat GCT by a run. I think it was there where I really began to start watching them a little bit closer. Because, look, I mean, their other losses are to lost to Magnet Cove right before the state tournament. I don't really hold that against them. The other one was to, I think it was Taylor, or there was 2 more, Taylor and Sheridan. So really once BB got that sweep of Maumelle, I'm like, okay, I think this team is really going to figure it out. They got 22 hits. Their bats was really all that needed to be fixed, or at least just kind of adjusted, not really fixed. But they got hot at the right time. When talent like that gets hot, it's going to result in some really good things. So just I don't know really as far as, somebody asked me the other day to compare these teams because both have two really good arms. Now, I know that Sheridan has 4 that they really trust that they can throw, but realistically, in terms of the state finals, you're probably going to see Cooper Terry and or Callie Kilburn, assuming no injuries or anything, for Sheridan. And then on the other side, you're likely going to see Lexi Delaney and or Jordy Lefford. So both have 2 very reliable arms, which help get them here. Sheridan's bats have been hot really all season. Meanwhile, BB's have been a little bit inconsistent, but they're hot right now. So this is one you like to. Most people would probably like to go with Sheridan just because they've been the hot team from beginning to end. But a lot of it too, though, is how are you playing right now? And I think that really this is a even matchup as we sit here in mid-May. If you would have asked me that about a month ago, I probably would have told you different.
Well, I watched Sheridan this last week, and Arkansas High played them fairly tough, and they, just couldn't quite get a hit here or there for Arkansas High. Things didn't quite come together, but they gave Sheridan, a good, solid, competitive game. But watching Sheridan's side of that, just watching how well they see the ball, how well they're hitting the ball, how aggressive they are on the base paths. That was one thing that I really noticed about Sheridan is they were very aggressive on the bases. They were getting extra bases. They were going for it, on stuff that a lot of people would hold up at 2. They were going for 3. They were just trying to, drop a bunt here or add something there. They were just super, super aggressive on the bases on top of being able to hit the ball well. And then they've got, a whole stable full of good pitching. Cooper Terry is as good as there is anywhere in the state. Callie Kilborn is as good a lefty as I've seen anywhere. So on the Sheridan side, for sure, great pitching, great hitting, lots of speed. They have all the tools for sure. They have Mary Lim in that lineup that can absolutely crush a softball. Skylar Sterrett, just everywhere you look on their field, they've got big hitters, speed, big arms, all those things, and then great pitching too. So Sheridan has it all. If they just keep it put together, they're going to be walking away with the state championship. But they're getting everyone else's best shot. Everybody knows that Sheridan is the favorite, and everybody brings their A game when they come. And the last 2 or 3 games in state have shown that when Sheridan's gotten away with those 3-2 wins, they're getting everybody else's best shot. Everybody's stepping into the ring, and they're going to throw that big punch and see if they can get a knockout. Well, BB brings 2 exceptional pitchers. Lexi Delaney and Jordy Lefford are just as good as there is anywhere around too. Lexi is a great lefty with, around 60 mile an hour velocity with great spin. Jordy is just a little off that in velocity, not much, but she's got exceptional spin. This matchup features probably 4 of the best pitchers that you'll see in opposing sides. If you tried to pick any 4 pitchers anywhere else in the state, I don't know that you get 4 this good anywhere. I would say that I don't know that I could pick here. I think Sheridan has just a little more firepower, but BB's going to give them their best shot. And with the pitching they have and the way they've been playing lately, man, this is a toss-up on this one.
Before we move down to 4A, I do want to look through a few of these games because I felt like this was one of the more, at least especially in the first round, these were some of the more compelling games. Well, maybe not more so compelling by the score, but I think probably just looking through here, I was most shocked that 1-3 was what the 5A South finished. Pretty much, and we had said, or I had said it multiple times, that was the best conference. And I felt like that during the regular season, that was the best conference just based on the strength of schedules. And, of course, I know they beat up on each other and all that, but Mountain Home, credit them. They played a really good game against Mountain Home in the first round. And then, of course, also to Greenwood. I mean, they got all over Lake Hamilton. And then that was probably the best game, well, along with the Sheridans, like how the Maumelle and the Valley View game, how that came down to it. Valley View, and on the walk-offs, Valley View played in two of the better games. They came out on top against Greenwood, and they put up that, what was it, a 5 spot, I think it was, in the 9th inning. So that one went to extras. And then, of course, they came up short in the semifinals in that great game to Sheridan. But we talked about that Valley View-Valonia matchup being one of the better ones of the first round, and that was a 3-1 win for Valley View. But definitely a credit to the Lady Blazers as well. That was one of those, along with BB, that had been a little bit streaky at we talked about it millions of times, that they had been streaky at the plate, and they really got some things going in the postseason. And so Coach Karen Sanders in her first year did a great job there at Valley View. It will be a little bit weird, and I'll close my point on 5A with this and throw it over to you. It's definitely going to be not only weird with Greene County Tech and Benton not being in the finals, it's weird not having either one of those teams and also seeing Benton go down in the first round.
I was extremely surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised so much in this particular matchup, but just overall for the year, it definitely does seem weird to have Benton not be there at least second, third round in. I'll tell you one thing that factored into some of these games is I've heard several people talk about the size of the field they played on, and that it was extremely large field, an extra 25 or 30 feet deeper than most of the fields that anybody plays on during the year. And so there's a lot of strategy that came into that. So teams would play really deep on big hitters, and balls that would normally be over the fence by 20 feet or more were being caught for fly ball outs. And just for instance, talking about the Arkansas High Mountain home game, there was 4 or 5 balls caught just inside the wall that would have been home runs in normal games. So that changes the game in a hurry. Everybody said, Mountain Home's hits were dropping and they were getting the base hits, and Arkansas High couldn't find a base hit, but they hit several balls that would have been out, but they were caught back close to the wall. When you change the game with an extra 25 or 30 feet inside the field, good coaching and knowing how to play those hitters, you can really strategize and adjust in the outfield according to the hitter. And that seemed to work in Mountain Home's favor. And 2 or 3 other games, I heard the same type of thing, that there was a lot of balls hit to that deep fence that would have been out anywhere else. So good coaching and strategy really seemed to help 2 or 3 of these teams on that big field.
Well, and speaking of, I do want to give a shout out to Anaya Arnold. How about her in that game? Because she did hit one out, and she, I believe, finished 3 for 3. She was big time in a losing effort.
Absolutely. They said that the ball that she hit out was a no-doubter also, and that's on a monster field. So, that's a kid that's just got great skill and ability. She can drop a bunt and beat it out, or she can hit it over the wall, and there's not a whole lot you can do to stop her. That's why she bats about 650 or 700, year-round year, travel ball or high school ball or anything else.
Then headed on down to 4A. And before we talk about the 4A one, just pretty much what we've known all year, and they basically proved that, I want to shout out Star City because they're the reason why it wasn't an all 4A1 semifinals. Star City, we knew that this year that we had them ranked a couple of times throughout the season. They've been on the outside looking in, that 6-7 range. Been a little bit streaky, but turned it on at the right time. And that 3-0 win over Gravett, I think, definitely took a lot of people by storm. Maybe not so much in the 4A8. Anybody that had played in South Arkansas that had seen Star City, out of that the Monticellos, the Hamburgs, and all those. But, and I say 2 names just because that's 2 of their conference foes. But sophomore Kendall Jones threw back-to-back shutouts, and to do that against Gravett and Bauxite. Look, I know Gravett might not quite be the team that we thought that they were maybe at the beginning of the year, but then they had some injury issues, had some things that they had to work out in the circle. Still a great team, but just were not able to complete the back-to-back run. But to still hold that team, that's still a very powerful batting lineup. We know all about what Bauxite has, and to pitch 2 shutouts, back-to-back games on back-to-back days. This is going to be a kid. I had heard Kendall Jones. I'm sorry. I had heard her name before, but certainly on our radar for the next 2 years. Big hats off to her and also the Lady Bulldogs for making a run here in the tournament.
Absolutely. Kendall Jones has definitely popped onto a whole lot of radars in the last 2 or 3 weeks. She's looked good all year, but she has made a name for herself, especially during the state tournament. And I've heard 2 or 3 different people within coaches and media talking about her and what a great job she's done. And all I'd ever known before was Briley Myers, and I was like, and she's a very good pitcher. And then you add Kendall Jones to that mix, and so then they add depth and they add ability, and they've just played great ball. I mean, they've shocked several teams in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And at this point, I don't know that it's shocking anybody anymore. They're just a good team, and everybody better get ready because the next couple of years they're going to be in the mix.
Yeah, going to be a nice – I would think that next year, way too early to talk about this, of course, because we're not even through this year yet. But Monticello and Star City, that's going to be a nice little competition. That's going to be probably like like Stuttgart and Monticello was when it was Elena Lyle and, oh gosh, what's the one that's at McNeese now? Emma Banks. Emma Banks and Elena Lyle. I can't believe I forgot Emma's name for a second. Sorry about that. Not like she's watching this, but I apologize for that. But so we got into a 4A1 finals for the second year in a row. Pea Ridge, they're making their third appearance in the last 4 years. And then Farmington, I think this is their first trip since 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So 2 4A1 teams again for the second year in a row. Last year, Gravett took down Pea Ridge, and Pea Ridge is trying to beat Farmington for the third time this season. Talking about a conference beating up on each other, this Region 1 conference certainly did that, and they really challenged themselves out of conference as well. Now, you had the semifinal matchup with, was it Farmington and Gentry, a 3-0 win for Farmington. And one more time, I want to say this year, just cannot say enough about the job that Sean Teeters and Lance Nations did at Gentry. Jared, to go from – they did. They won more games this year than they won the last 2 years combined. They had 2 seniors on this team that had made great contributions to the team and are going to go out on a high note. So you certainly love that for them to be able to go out with so many great memories as far as the wins compared to what they had been used to. But also it sets the tone for the future. And there is a lot of talent coming back for Gentry. Obviously, there's going to be plenty coming back for all these other Region 1 teams. So I don't see a whole lot changing just from the outside looking in. But, I mean, it's not shocking that we're at this point. We had a feeling that Pea Ridge would certainly be back here, especially with the way that Emery Bolin plays. It all starts with her. But she's had a lot of great help around her. But then also, too, you've got a lot of big bats in that Farmington lineup. They found something pretty good in the circle, and that combination between Kennedy Griggs and then the freshman Morgan Reeves. Morgan Reeves has really come on. I got a chance to see her first start. That was actually against Springdale Harbor in the Farmington tournament that Farmington ended up with I think it was Morgan Hewer that hit the 3-home run, maybe her or Mallory Sills. They both had 3-run homers in that span, but it was a walk-off. But definitely going to be a great matchup. Anytime these teams play each other, as we've seen 2 times before, even though they were both Pea Ridge wins, now they get to do it on the biggest stage, and anytime they do get together, you know that there's something big coming, and I think it's going to be another great matchup.
I like the matchup for sure. I like the storyline with the best friends playing each other, and Morgan Ewer and Emery Bolin. Those two have been really good friends for a long time. They've played each other plenty of times, but they get to do it one more time before Morgan goes out. Just a lot of talent, a lot of ability on both those squads. I hate to make predictions, but I have a hard time going against the arm of Emery Bolin. And I know Farmington has great bats. They have a ton of talent on that team. I think it's going to be one of those games that's down to the wire. But I can never bet against the arm of Emery Bolin when it comes.
Well,
to that.
I'm calling this game on statewide TV, so I am not making a prediction. I'm going to pull the Kirk Herbstreit and not make a prediction, and because it's too hard.
My only prediction is that Emery Bolin throws well, and it's a really close game, whichever way it goes.
I think that a team that wears red is going to win it. That's my prediction for it. I'm just going to leave it right there. But it's going to be a team from the same conference and a team that wears red. But no, I'm with you. I think I almost kind of feel like that this is like, and again, I'm not making any predictions, maybe just kind of throwing a little spice into it. We expect this to maybe be a pitcher's duel, but I could see this maybe. Last year was what, 5-2, something like that. I think in Gravett won 5-2, 5-1. But yeah, I mean, it's just a toss-up, and it truly is. It's a cop-out answer. But you just look at what I pointed out last week that Lance Nations had posted. You look at just the difference in the district finish. This is the top 4 teams, of course. You look at the regular season finish, the district finish, and then the regional finish. You just can't predict this.
Well, it's basically it's Farmington's bats against Emory Boland's arm, and I'll tell you, it's going to be a really good ball game because Farmington definitely has great bats and a really good defense, and Pea Ridge Emory has an exceptional arm. She's got a solid team around her that has been with her and made plays and helped her all year long, and they're scoring enough runs. She almost always holds the score down, and they're scoring enough runs to win. So she's had that support that she's needed even in the really big competition games. So couldn't be more proud of any of those kids. There's a lot of good kids, a lot of good character kids on both those teams. Be interesting to see how it does play out.
And then before we head on down to 3A, I want to remind you about our friends at Athletic Field Service of Arkansas, because a properly graded infield is not only important for player safety, but also the field's health. No company in the state can match the exceptional service and dedication like our friends at Athletic Field Service of Arkansas in Sherwood. From infield renovation, lip removal and edging, mound rehab, laser leveling, and much more, Jeremy Rice and his crew have you covered. Call Jeremy at 501-416-1218. That's 501-416-1218 for your free evaluation and consultation. And you can check them out on Facebook or see what they have to offer online by searching Athletic Field Service of Arkansas. Athletic Field Service of Arkansas, we got the dirt on your infield. So before we start on 3A and get in depth about it, one of the games that we started off with was the 10 o'clock between Atkins and Boonville, the rematch of last year's state finals. We knew that was just going to be an absolute banger of a game, and it certainly was. And Jared, you did a great job with the interview with Coach Porter afterwards. And first thing he did pretty much was just praise Lexi Franklin for the career that she had. And talked about, that was pretty much what they were trying to do for that game, was stay off her rise ball, and just gave her a ton of credit. And I certainly want to reiterate that. We mentioned a lot of it last week when we talked about her hitting those 1,000 strikeouts. But I want to take a second to really give a big shout out to what Matt Porter, this 2024 class, and what Atkins has done over the past 3 years. And I don't think people truly understand, unless you've been that route, what it takes to get to, let alone win, a state finals. I know what it's like to get there. I know what it's like to lose. It sucks. And Atkins understood. Now, mine was football, not baseball, or it's obviously softball, but they knew what that feeling was the last 2 years. And then they came up short of getting to the finals and hopefully getting those seniors a ring. But I want to point out, I know the 4 that I know, Libby May, Adrian Henderson, Addison Flory, and then, of course, Alyssa Limley. Kids that we've covered, really, Jared, since you and I have started doing this. And I just want to look in this camera and tell every single one of those kids, and I'm speaking to everybody at Atkins, just what a great job that you did, not just representing yourself, but the 3A5 and just 3A in general and making it better. There is not enough credit given when you make it that far. It's only talked about in today's world if you get a shiny ring and a shiny trophy. And I hate that because there are so many great teams that don't get their due recognition. And I just want to point that out because this is a very, very successful senior class that is about to depart Atkins. And they may not have a ring to show for it, but, man, they certainly represented their town well, themselves well, and they made Class 3A a lot better.
Well, I can't personally say enough about Libby May. I know her pretty well. She's picked up and played with our team several times when she wasn't playing with Firecrackers. And so I know her character and her heart and her integrity and just all. I can't say enough good things about her, but watching her play the 2 games that I watched this week, her just, I don't know what you, I don't know what the best word to say is, but just true grit and just wanting it so bad. And just, I mean, both games I watched, she went into extra innings and she threw the whole time. And she just gave it everything she had. She laid all of it on the field. And I'll tell you, I was super impressed with her. Not only like I've always been with all of the great things that she is, a great teammate, a great person, but just as a competitor, she was super intense and super focused. And she just worked and worked and worked. And she gave her team chance after chance to keep themselves in ball games. And I saw several good hits. I saw the walk off against Boonville. That was a great little ending to a game that was just an absolute just fight between two great pitchers. Uh, Lexi Franklin is just unreal. That was the first time I got to see her in person. I've watched tons of film on her. First time I got to see her in person, and she is just a great talent. And Boonville just kept digging and kept digging. I mean, not Boonville, but Atkins kept digging and finally found a way to get ahead in that game. But Boonville gave them everything they wanted. But I'll tell you, the thing that I saw besides Libby May that impressed me, Alyssa Limley. That girl is a leader just with her actions and the things that she does. She had, even when things were looking bad, I seen her going to teammates and talking to them. I seen her go from player to player and just help pump her teammates up and keep their head in the game and keep them focused. And regardless of what she does on the field, and she's a great player, what she does as a leader for that team, there's not enough said about it, because I promise you, she's kind of the glue between her and Libby that hold that team together and really gives them what they have and what's made them go. And the whole team is great. There's tons of talent on it. And those other two seniors are very talented players. But I couldn't be more impressed with Libby May and Alyssa Limley.
And I was also very impressed with DeWitt. I said last week that the two biggest teams that had the most to prove was them and Salem. And Salem, they were undefeated coming in and then lost in the first round to Genoa Central. And then DeWitt, they came in, made it to the semifinals, and they got down against Lincoln. Really chipped it back at the lead, but just could not come back, and they lost 5-3. But I'll tell you, Jared, DeWitt, they're going to be one to watch. They're only losing one senior. They got everybody pretty much coming back. That's going to be one of our top ones to watch next year, and certainly all the credit in the world to the Dragonettes. They represented, talking about representing well, like we talked about with Atkins, they represented Southeast Arkansas about as well as you could. I was very impressed with their fan base, brought a large crowd with them. And also, too, again, just their overall play. They could have easily – they're not used to being on that stage. I think that was actually the first time that they had been in the semifinals. Is actually Lincoln's first time in the semifinals as well. But I just think that maybe a lot of times teams, when they get punched in the mouth, sometimes you just – especially at that level, when the lights just continue to get brighter. And I guess in this case, the sun continued to get brighter since it was day, if we're being literal. But – it tends to just they'll lay down and not come back and not even try to sometimes. And that was the complete opposite with DeWitt. They did not get down on themselves. They just continued to believe, but just weren't able to pull it out. But that sets up Hackett and Lincoln, the finals teams that we'll now get into. And this is probably about the matchup that I expected during the 2022 season a lot, Jared. These were two teams that had a lot of regular season success and had a feeling if it wasn't going to be Baptist Prep. I know every week we went on the episode and talked about it was the Baptist Prep Invitational in 3A. At that time it was. But if it wasn't going to be Baptist Prep, you had a feeling it might be Hackett or Lincoln. And Hackett ended up beating Baptist Prep, and neither one of those teams made it to the finals. But certainly not surprised that either are in this spot. Hackett in that game against Atkins, it was 0-0 through 8 innings, and then Hackett hits that 3-run shot, and that pretty much sealed the deal eventually. And then Lincoln, they were pretty much gassed like everybody else was. And I was kind of just talking to Coach Engel before the game. That was one thing that she had said. They're really tired from the gauntlet that they played, but also acknowledged that everybody is tired this time of year. And went out there. Brink pitched another great game. And again, a really gutsy performance by DeWitt on that side. But definitely it was a low scoring semifinal matchup, or semifinal round, I guess you could say, between the two games. But this Hackett-Lincoln matchup, look, there's some intensity anytime that these two teams plays. Now, I know that Hackett has the number this year. They've beat them pretty good. When you combine the scores, they beat them pretty good in all three of those matchups. But I think that both of them are about as healthy as they can be. They're going to be as rested as they can be and prepared for the bright lights of a state championship.
I got to see part of the Lincoln and DeWitt game, and it was 3-0 when I had to leave Lincoln. Definitely to step back a little bit to DeWitt, I've been impressed with what they've done all year. I was very impressed with what they did in this state tournament run. Definitely has a fan base that brings a lot of energy. And I'll say this about fan bases a little bit without naming any names. I saw some of the best and the classiest fan bases that I have seen anywhere in high school this week. And I saw some of the worst. And I won't say anything about who, but I'll tell you what, when you're at state tournament and you have fan bases that are on umpires and using foul language and stuff, it's not a good look
around kids.
It's not a good look when college coaches are standing right beside your fans that are doing those things. And like I said, I won't name any names, but some of those admins and some of those coaches might need to police some of that a little bit better, because it could be hurting your kids. But definitely saw some great fan bases that were very classy and did things the right way, and saw some of the opposite too. But I'll tell you what, this matchup with Lincoln and Hackett, with them both being healthy, both having a week's rest, I think it could be absolutely a really good game. I would say, just looking at it on paper, Hackett's probably a little bit favored just because they have a little bit more through the top to bottom lineup. They have a little more solid, a little bit deeper, ability, in my opinion, a little more talent all the way to the 9-hole. But Lincoln definitely has the ability. And when you put Brinkley Morton on any team, you have the chance with her in the circle to win against anybody. And you never know when she's going to have just an exceptional game. And I'll tell you, I've been very impressed with Lincoln's catcher, because watching those pitches from Brink, some of those balls are really hard to dig and keep in front. And I'll tell you what, that little catcher has done a great job of just making some really, really tough plays. I'm trying to think, is her name Addie Purcell or?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, Addie Purcell. Yep.
Purcell, okay. Very impressed with her play and some of the plays that she made to keep the ball in front of her on some really tough pitches. Definitely one of the things that's helped keep Lincoln in ball games and allowed them to keep going the way they're going. And Brinkley Morton, I mean, I can't say enough about that kid. Just watching the way that she hit the ball the other day. I mean, two of her fly ball out, or she hit one over the center fielder that just kept carrying. And then she hit one so hard that the left fielder that made the catch fell over backwards catching the ball at the fence. I mean, it was just a rocket. And I didn't get to see her at bats after that. I don't know what she did with those. You were there, but just that young lady hits the ball hard every time at the plate, it seems like. And I sure don't want to be the pitcher having to throw to her. And I know that there's definitely pitchers that are going to get over on her and get strikeouts on her, but she's one of those kids that just seems to drive the ball hard every time she's up. Got to talk to her a couple of different times in person, and I can't say enough about her character, and just seems like just a great kid and, a great teammate and everything I've seen from her.
Oh, yeah. Brink's as cool as the other side of the pillow, man. She's super chill. And that's talking about her hitting. She's not a big hitter. I mean, she's small. I mean, smaller. And compared to what her bat is what I mean. You don't think that a kid has that much power in a bat, but she can smoke it. And that was probably when she was a freshman, that was one of the things that stuck out to me is when I keep hearing about this big hitter, this freshman that's a big hitter, and then, so that was just really surprising. But, yeah, she is an exceptional player. Mackenzie Freeman also in the circle, who has quite a bit more height. All those Freeman girls, man, they're 6 foot plus, pretty much all of them. And she's really good in the circle, has a great bat as well. So, and then her sister, Mikey Freeman, another great bat. But yeah, I think it's going to be. These are two teams that we know really, really well, and so not shocking that they're here. And then it's 3A. That's been by far the most unpredictable conference or unpredictable class this year. But what has not been unpredictable is Class 2A. It's not shocking that we are going to have a rematch of last year, Riverside and Mansfield. And Jared, last year we're going to get to see Allison Edwards one more time on the big stage. This is her third state finals in the past 4 years, and she's looking for her first ring. And now she's had 4 state championships. She's got 4 state championship rings in volleyball, but went to the finals in basketball this past March, and then now trying to get the softball. But last year, her and Claire combined for 34 strikeouts in this game, 18 from Claire, 16 from Allison. And we were kind of wondering if there was something off with Claire during the 2A North Regional, just because we're so used to looking at her line and you see 7 or whatever, however many innings pitched, and then a bunch of zeros and then double digits in the strikeout. So you were kind of like, man, what's going on here? But then you think about the grind of tournaments and also the grind of the season when you get to this point. But she played really, really well in the state tournament. I think had around 30 strikeouts in the 25, 30 strikeouts in those 3 games. But Mansfield, last year, they came into the finals on a 24-game win streak. They come in this year on a 22-game win streak. I would say that they've got to have around 100 wins over the past 4 years pretty easily. But they take another long streak into this. And very similar teams. Mansfield lost a few more than Riverside did. The only one Riverside did that they lost was Mackenzie Thomas, who ended up hitting the RBI single that scored Annalie Qualls to win the game eventually. But very similar teams, but it's going to look the exact same in the circle. And I think this is a matchup probably many people like you and I expected to see from really the beginning of the season.
The 2 of the best pitchers in the entire state, definitely 2 of the best pitchers in 2A. Just impressive, both of them. I haven't seen Claire pitch in person. I've watched, once again, I've seen a lot of film on her. Really started to be extra impressed with her watching her in the state championship last year, and really being able to see with that camera view looking from behind where you could see the pitches and see the amount of movement on the pitches. I was extremely impressed with the amount of that she can bend the ball, and have movement on her pitches. And Allison Edwards, the same thing. Just watching both of them use their curveball and rise ball and just continue to just dominate hitters. They're both very, very good pitchers. As good as anywhere in the state. I mean, they could hold their own with anybody you want to throw up there against them. Riverside definitely has some impressive hitters to go with Claire pitching. And Mansfield does too. I feel like on the hitting side, I got to give maybe a slight edge to Riverside. Just not a lot, but maybe just a slight edge. And then on the pitching, man, I don't know that I could give an edge to either one of them. They're both really, really good. Last year, I think Claire was just an ounce better maybe, but it wasn't much different. So it'll be a great game.
Yeah, two of the better ones statistically and just skill-wise. I mean, in my opinion, they're both Division I pitchers. Claire has not committed, but Allison's going to go to Omaha, who just beat South Dakota State for the Summit League Championship. So really good program there. But, hey, I want to also, too, I cannot get past 2A. I want to give Woodlawn some due credit. I know that's probably a team that I've been a little hard on over the past couple of years, mainly in 2022. But this was not the year that we expected them to go to the semifinals. Of course, they were missing Lily Faye for some of those games prior to, I guess, around districts, regionals, and all that. Or she played in regionals, but kind of towards the end of the regular season. And then districts, it was looking a little bit shaky if we would see her again. But came back and did a great job for her team. And talking about heralded senior classes, there's a lot in this 2024 class that made some strong contributions to the Lady Bears that are going to be gone. But of course, too, their head coach was relieved of his duties before the regional tournament, so they've had to go through that adversity and still made a run to the Final Four. So definitely all hats off, especially battling the injuries, battling some of the overall odds but maybe they were in a good position because I don't think that they had much pressure, at least compared to what they did in previous years. Risen came out and won the regional. So maybe this was a better position for them. But nonetheless, want to give a shout out to the Lady Bears for making it to the furthest I think they've been since 2018. Really great season for them. Been one of the better regular season teams over the past few years.
I would for sure say that Woodlawn has shown a lot of grit and a lot of fight. Definitely there were stretches there where they didn't look like they were going to be a top 6 or maybe top 8 team after being ranked pretty high early. Battled injuries, battled, drama with the coaching situation and all the different things that have gone on. And, Lily Faye has toughed through an injury and really stepped up big for her team. Can't say enough about that kid. I mean, that young lady is just exceptional. She's a special talent, great young lady, great character. I've also spent a lot of time around her and know her family, and you just can't speak highly enough about them. And they're great people. They're definitely going to lose quite a bit, in my opinion. But they've got some good young ones coming up. So, Woodlawn may still be in that conversation as we go forward. And I'll tell you, I want to say a little bit about Manic Cove. They didn't get to the state championship, but man, Manic Cove was as consistent as anybody all year long, and really just played a lot of good ball. And there was a couple of two or three really good seniors there. Of course, Maddie Fulmer had reclassified and was a senior. Bella Harville was a senior this year. Great young lady. Both of those are. Kinsley Brashears, and Hadley Harrington, and some of those in that senior class for Manic Cove. Just an impressive group that had been in the state tournament, I think 3 years in a row. Just a really good bunch of kids there too. So give them a little shout out on top of that.
And then last but not least, in Class 1A, Taylor will get the chance to win a historic 7th consecutive state championship. No team in any classification has ever done so. They tore through the first rounds against Bradford and Westside Greers Ferry. They outscored them 18-0. They didn't allow a single run, Jared, in the state tournament, but Shirley did have them sweating a little bit. They did walk them off. Did the Lady Tigers walk off the Lady Blue Devils 1-0 in the 7th inning. So, again, they are going to go play in the state finals. Before I talk about the team they're going to play, certainly want to give a shout-out to the Shirley Lady Blue Devils. We ranked them in the top 4 at the beginning of the season. Really consistent throughout the whole year. Maybe hit a few snags here and there, but definitely went probably further than many in 1A expected. I've been high on them all season. Hunter Hutto is going to be a pitcher that I'm going to really miss. I really love to follow her, just seeing the kind of dominant performances she put in and year out. Haley Krotz is another one from Viola that I really enjoyed covering in 1A that's going to graduate. And the team that knocked Viola out was the Scranton Lady Rockets. That was in the first round, and they got that 10-2 win, Jared, and I'm like, holy cow, man, I'm not sure that I saw that. Not only did I not expect Scranton to win that game, certainly not in that kind of margin, but I did that article about Scranton last year when they had come back from – they went on that hiatus in 2022. Then Coach Bateman came in, Whitney Bateman, talked to her last year, and this was her first year in 2023 coaching softball. And you're, again, basically restarting because the girls that she had not played on the team previously. I mean, they started off brand new with the coach, players, everything. Had a pretty good season last year, made it to the quarterfinals. This year, they started off 2-10. So Not really. We probably weren't expecting a whole lot, but then you looked at who they were playing. Probably knew that was coming for me at some point. That was one of the first things that stuck out to me about Coach Bateman was she talked about how she wanted to put her girls through as much of the tough teams that she could, and she did that in both of those years. And it has really paid off because, like you said, on April Fool's Day, this team was 2-10, and they were 14-0 since. Just ran through districts, got through their regionals, and now they're playing for a state championship. Coincidentally, the first state title of this 6 in a row that Taylor won, it was a win over Scranton. So they're trying to get the bookend of that first one in that streak, and then that 7th one that would be a record. But Scranton is in their way, hoping to win their first since 2015.
Well, I'll definitely give Scranton tons of credit because they had to beat a really good Bradley team and Ainsley Moore to get there. And that's saying something because for the last 2 to 3 years, not really anybody other than Taylor has been able to do that, to be able to get over on Bradley and to get over on Ainsley Moore. So it's been pretty much the Bradley Taylor show for a long time, and Scranton interrupted that. So I will definitely give Scranton all the credit in the world. They have definitely put themselves back on the map in 1A softball. Taylor has been dominant for sure up until that Shirley game. That Shirley game, I got to give Shirley all the credit in the world because they took them to the mat and it was an absolute, down to the wire deal. And that's the first time that I've seen Taylor bats to be silenced that much. And so I've got to say, Hunter Hutto did a great job there. And it was a fantastic ball game from all accounts. Everything that I've heard from all the fans from both sides that were there, it was just an exceptional ball game. And Taylor was fortunate to come out and get themselves back to the state championship. And, we talk about her a lot, but man, look at the stats for Ayla Buford through the state tournament. That kid has not allowed an earned run in the state tournament. I mean, a 0 ERA, batting average against is insane. I mean, she has absolutely pitched lights out. And luckily she did because when the bats weren't quite there against Shirley, the pitching carried on. The pitching and defense was still there. So they say that offense, wins games and defense wins championships. Well, they definitely had the pitching and the defense to carry them on to a state championship.
Well, and I'm interested to see this matchup of pitchers because Ayla is the most decorated player in Class 1A right now, and that's not debatable. You're a junior in high school, and you've got 2 1A state tournament MVPs to your credit. I mean, to me, it's just not close. But then you've got a sophomore pitcher in Delaney Maynor, who I knew I think she threw most of the innings for Scranton last year. 31 strikeouts in 3 complete games during the state tournament. And talking about their strength of schedule, they played and Scranton, of course, and Taylor did too, played multiple higher classification schools. They played in the River City Rumble, and Van Buren played against Bentonville West. They played against Atkins. I know they played against Hackett earlier in the season, 3A finalists that we just discussed a second ago. So I think Scranton is definitely battle-tested, just like Taylor is, and that's why they're in this position. I don't think it's going to be – I do feel like that it's going to be really tough for Taylor to be stopped, but I don't think it's going to be like a 12 to – what was the score last year, like 12-2 or something like that? I don't think it's going to be that big of a discrepancy. I think that it is going to be closer, but I just – it's hard for me to think that this 2024 Taylor class is going to leave without a ring to really just complete it all. But I tell you, Scranton is a much more formidable opponent than probably anybody outside of their school called.
I cannot make a prediction in this game because I know how much pressure is on Taylor. And every year when they get to this point, the pressure it's like you can compound it and pack it down and hammer them down. Those girls just continue to have pressure piled on them. The expectations that just come with living in that community and all the state titles that have come through there between softball and baseball and everything that happens, it's just, man, they are expected to win state, and if they haven't, like, they have failed. Kind of, that's the expectation, and that pressure is a lot. So I'm not going to make a prediction. I do believe that Taylor is a little bit the better team as far as the ability on the field, but Scranton has played so well, and they're so hot right now. Man, it's hard to pick against them. It's kind of like CAC was in 2A, and just they look like a wrecking ball for about 2 weeks there, and nobody could seem to do anything with them. Scranton's kind of in that spot right now, coming through 1A. The last 8 or 10 games, they've just looked really tough. So if they can, if Scranton can get Taylor's hitters off just a little bit and keep them at bay, they've got a chance. I know that Ayla Buford is going to do her normal thing. She's going to pitch a really good ball, but it may be one of these that comes down to, somebody gets a bunt and squeezes one across, and it may be a 1-0 ball game or a 2-1 ball game. I could see it easily being that way and go either way. Or if Taylor all of a sudden finds their bats, it could easily be a 5, 6, 7 run ball game. But I think that Scranton has a real chance to keep it close and get a win at the end.
Want to send a friendly reminder, if you're watching on YouTube and you have not already, make sure and subscribe to that. And you can hit that notification button to let you know when we release an episode. As I've mentioned over the last few shows, we are going to continue baseball and softball coverage once we get into the summer as well. We'll try to continue that on through the College World Series, both of them, the men's, for baseball and softball. That's the goal. So we'll, of course, have our recap next week to recap the state finals and just kind of wrap up the 2024 season. Just cannot believe that we are there. And also wanted to remind you, too, you can check out our content on naturalstatesports.com, and we will have the final rankings there. Probably the majority of state championship coverage we have will probably just be on the social media pages, but we'll have our final rankings and all that. And then also, too, if you like the audio podcast versions, just go to Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, search Arkansas Preps Weekly, and be sure and subscribe to that. Also, leave us a 5-star rating if you can. If it's not 5-star, send me an email, kyle.sutherland54@gmail.com, and we will try to make that to a 5-star, so that way we can talk to you about it before you give your final decision. But, Jared, other than that, I think that I will wrap this up unless you got anything else.
Just a lot of really talented seniors that are going out, just finished up or about to finish up. Just want to wish them all luck as they go forward in their softball careers and into life. And been a lot of fun covering a lot of these really good senior ball players, and looking forward to seeing some of these young ones come up again. And we'll talk about them all a little bit next week when we recap. But just want to wish them all a lot of luck for those seniors going out.
That's right. Make sure you tune in next week to recap the 2024 season. This will be season 3 of this podcast. Well, I guess, or not this podcast, but, the coverage. So crazy that we've already gotten to this point. But that will do it for episode number 11 of Arkansas Preps Weekly. Again, naturalstatesports.com, Natural State Sports on all social media platforms. For Jared Hawthorn and all of us here at Natural State Sports, my name's Kyle Sutherland. We will catch you next week.